Greetings and welcome to this all-new Trapcode TAO session. Today we're gonna create something pretty random, and it doesn't have to make any sense, of course. It's gonna be some kind of flat, squared towers, and well, for me it's Friday. I don't know it might be any day of the week you're watching this, but in my case, we are Friday, and it's gonna be pretty casual. And I think the key word or the key sentence, the key phrase for this session could be, well, it doesn't have to make sense. Sometimes I create stuff, I get inspired looking at stuff other people do, and then I try most of the time to recreate something with TAO that I've seen that was created with Cinema 4D, and try to apply different techniques that applies in Cinema 4D world into this that is in After Effects. It doesn't always translate as well as it could, but the point is that it doesn't have to matter, and it doesn't have to make any sense. Sometimes you just start with something, like you have a basic idea in mind, and you just you don't know if it's gonna unleash some other idea while you actually go out and put it in place and put your basic idea there and start to mess with it, and then come up with something that you wouldn't have necessarily been able to think of as you start. So I encourage you to, even if your idea is not complete in your mind, even if it's not like the ends is not the means, just put something out there and mess around with it, and sometimes you can get surprised by your own ideas. That sometimes you can get surprised by the evolution process of your own ideas, but of course nothing really happens unless you actually put out something, a basic something, into your favorite tool, your favorite software, and it's just a matter of having fun and also practicing with what you love to do, and making you a better person, making you a better, a more seasoned user of your tools. So let's start ahead and let's create that. Let's play around. Let's start to create something 1080 by 1080, and we're gonna create a new solid. Control Y. We're gonna call it TAO, and let's apply Trapcode TAO to that. So let's pick this up, and how did that go? So let's start off by creating a new light, and there might be some other ways to do this, but this is one, and this is one way to play. So let's play around. Let's start by making it white, and let's call it TAO, and let's bring it to the center by creating a new null. And then I'm gonna hit P to reveal position, make it 3D, and I'm gonna hit Control C on the position for this, and select my light and hit Control V to paste. It's gonna make it right at the center, and I'm gonna simply connect this to that. So now what we have is a light that is in relation to this object is at 0, 0, 0. That's fine. So let's make a basic cube. We can, of course, repeat n-gons and have cubes, but let's make one of our own in a different manner, just to play around. There's no real reason for this. It's just we have this idea, and let's test it out. Let's see what happens. So let's make this 4 sides, and we can turn off the path generator, and let's remove the chamfer. So we have a flat square there, and we don't need to have more than 3 segments here. I think that this is sufficient for generating this sphere, and let's turn on if that's something that we want to do. Sometimes when we build stuff in 3D, we want to see the mesh of that. So let's get in the rendering, and let's make a second pass wireframe, and it's simply gonna, let's make it black. So it's simply gonna make it a colored line on our flat square, and this is something we can leave it there or change it any way we want. So let's make it a cube. We're gonna try to make that even, so this, we're gonna start by pulling it towards us. So let's make it not on the X but on the Z towards us, 100, minus 100, and then let's make another one. So Control D to duplicate it, and I'm gonna hit P to reveal the position, and this one I'm gonna move it on the opposite direction on Z, so we have it just in the back. Let me quickly make a camera, default value 50 millimeters. I'm gonna click OK, and let me quickly create another new null, which I'm gonna call dolly, and I'm gonna link my camera to that, and let's make this 3D, of course, and let's rotate around. So this is kind of what we have here. So we're starting to build off our little simple thingy here. Let's duplicate that, and let's see here what we have. Let's make it 0, 0, and 0, and let's have this one facing the other direction, so we can rotate it 90 degrees on Y, and let's also move it this time on so let's not rotate it, because once we move it, it's gonna be aligned in this case towards the point of interest, and maybe this is now the time to decide if we want to leave the auto orient to off and see what probably won't change anything, but let's make it off, so when we duplicate our light it won't matter. So now we have to rotate it. So is that something that's perhaps more useful if we don't change it? I don't know. Let's leave it in this case facing the point of interest, so we don't have any angle to put there, because we're just testing things out. We want to see what we're gonna obtain that way. So let's make sure they all orient towards the point of interest. We can keep it in that manner. So minus 100. And this one is, let's make sure we use the same amount here. So now we can bring another one there and have it at positive 100, and let's make one more, and this one now we've got on X on Z. Let's make this one on Y, so 0 there and 100 here, bringing it on top there, and this one let's make it minus 100, so we have we're starting to create something that is quite cubic, but we have some gaps there. So let's make ourselves a custom control right on our null here, which we can call settings, and right here we can apply an expression control, slider control, and let's call this scale, and let's make this 100. So let's use simple expressions to connect all this to one place. So now that we have our setting layer here, we can lock it down clicking there, and let's do that. So let's hit P. So this I'm gonna hit Alt click on the stopwatch here and open bracket, so 0. So I'm going to connect the first value to this, the second value to that, and the third value we're going to just put down the minus sign here because it's in the negative values, and then we're going to connect it to that. So let's close down the bracket. Nothing should change, it's just that this now controls that. So we're going to want to apply this code on every other light, and let's simply select it all and copy it, and then we're going to come over here on our second light. Simply I'll click here, paste it, and the only thing we have to change in this case is to remove the minus sign there, and we can do the same here. I'll click here, but this one is the X position, so we can still do that, but we can grab this here, and we can replace this with that, and it's the minus, so we get the minus here, and we have to add a value for the Z, so we can simply grab it down from there. So we can copy this onto that. I'll click and let's paste that, but remove the minus sign here because it's the positive 100, and then repeat but for the Y. So let's paste that. Now this is going to be oops, make sure you click right on there, and then this one here is going to be that, and same here. We can just copy that line now, and Alt click here and add the minus sign here just after the comma. So nothing has changed, pretty straightforward. Let's save that, and so let's save that. There's no worries about how organized am I in my folder there. So let's now we have this, and we can now control the distance for our little squares there, and we can bring them towards the center, or we can pull them out. So let's bring them approximately where they would make a perfect cube, so around 72, and that's when you can decide if you really want to have the stroke active or not. I think it can also look cool, so Control Shift H to remove the layer control, so you can have a view of that. And let's color that, so perhaps we can one easy way to have some colors in there is simply to change the light color. So let's make one blue, and let's have nice vivid colors here. So let's make the third one also blue, so we can simply grab the color like that here, and oh no, it's the one right beside. Let's try to have another color here, so let's make this one yellow, and this one, let's make it red, and then we can copy those colors from there. So simply grab it like that, and let's grab our red, and I'm hitting twice on A here to reveal the light options here. So let's grab that, and let's grab the blue. Oops, I got the gray. So let's grab the blue, and of course one thing that you can also do if you want to centralize your options is to get more custom control. So let's add a color control, and instead of having to remember to change it there and everything, we can make it all to one place. So let's make sure it's the same red by doing that, and then we can simply alt click on the color here and lock it down here. So this will be our color 1, and then we can duplicate that here, color 2, color 3. So let's simply make sure that we have this is the same blue, and the yellow here, let's pick it up. So this will be connected to that, and this one is already connected. This one will be connected to that. So let's make sure all of those are also connected. I'll click, pick whip the red. I'll click, pick whip the yellow. Or I can simply copy the code here and get to the last one I need to change here. I'll click here, paste, and since here it's the color number 3, I want the color number 2. I can simply change the digit here. So that brings us the same result. So there we have our little cube here. Here are our 3 colors, and perhaps the other one that is blue, this one and this one, we can invert them. So let's make this color number 2, and let's make this one color number 1. So right on top we have our red color. Let's go back to TAO. So now I have this locked down, so I can simply bring this here, and if I want to see my TAO, I can hit F3 on the keyboard, and it's going to make another tab here, which we can slide down over here, so we can access both our general settings here and our TAO. So here we can play around with the size of our pieces here, if that's what we want to do, and let's get rid of our wireframe. So we have a simple colored cube there, and it's made from extruded end guns and not repeat end guns, which would already be something else. And let's keep that in mind, because when we play around with every other settings, we have many possibilities now. So let's simply see what we can do here to mess around with that and create a structure out of it. So let's repeat it. Let's open our repeater, and let's first create a background. Gotta make it a nice flashy red, and perhaps that's a little bit too flashy. My eyes are hurting. Let's tone it down a little bit. So there we have it, completely extreme colors, why not? And let's start this off. So remember, we always have access to this if there's something we want to play around with, and we can perhaps look up our ambient occlusion. So let's get in the rendering here, and let's first start by increasing this, and it's kind of pretty dirty here, so let's try other options here in the super sample. Let's make it 16, so this is perhaps a little bit extreme, so we want might to reduce the radius here, but not too much, and then lift it a little bit and increase the scale. then bring it back to dithering. Make sure it's not extremely noisy, if that's possible. And then we can simply repeat that. So let's open up the repeater, and let's increase the amount of repetitions. So what's happening is that nothing is appearing, because we're kind of building stuff in a way that it's a little bit unorthodox. But let's see. If we don't orient them to the path, they will repeat. So that works for us. We don't need to know why necessarily. Let's just start to work from there. So let's bring it down to 0. Let's see if our thing is the same, if it was oriented or not. It wouldn't change anything. Then we can rotate that here. Oh, that's cool. And let's make sure they're not oriented, and then they'll repeat. So let's make it kind of a tower. So we don't want it. We don't want to affect the world position X. Let's repeat it on Y. So now it doesn't work. Let's try to orient it, or let's try to do that. There we go. So let's bring them close together, and we're starting from the bottom to the top. If you want to control it from the bottom to the top, disable the symmetric doubler in there, and if you wanted to control it from the center, you can have this activated. But let's do it this way, so we have a precise control over the growth of our structure. If it was kind of like a building, and perhaps we can move down with the camera there. So let's add more, and let's increase the random position, and already we have something that's pretty neat. And let's change the segment position X. So that's something. Let's change the segment position Y, or the segment position Z, and as we mess around with that, it will like affect the distance at which our flat pieces are from one and another, and that will happen gradually. So as we get upwards, they'll get at first more close to themselves, more closer to themselves, and then so close that the process will revert back, and then we have different colors facing, and upwards there they're gonna detach. So that's a nice structure. It's still kind of mathematical, so you can reduce the value, you can decrease the value here in the segment position factor, so that'll make this change over the copies. It'll induce smaller increments based on what we put down here. So this will have not at all much change between the first copy and the copy on top, and it's simply put down to 6, 8 something, and by default it's set to 1. So depending on if you we can put down really high value here if we want the last one to be that far, but we can bring it back, reducing the position factor. So that's something we can build, and I'll say it again, it doesn't really have to matter, it's just what we're exploring here, and that's a pretty cool shape. And what TAO allows us to do is to change in the random seed, since we have some random affecting values here that are implied, then we can have different seeds based on the same setting. So lots of option for just building something a different way, and it probably would work if we were to color it with the different technique, or if we build it in some other fashion, we could obtain the same result. But that's the point here, is that any way is valid. Anything that you can think of, put it in place there, and then play around with it, and then you'll discover more stuff. So this thing that we've made, like some kind of a tower there, let's add more to it, and let's decrease that so we can get small. It's pretty cool structures here with, like, I like the repetitions of those, even if it's just a simple piece we start with. We can get nice patterns here, and simple colors also. So it's not that everything that we create has to necessarily have a meaning or an end, or we don't even have to necessarily know what we're going to be creating when we start doing it. Most of the things we won't ever do because we think or we feel that our idea is not necessarily good enough, or it's not complete. But even if the idea is not complete in itself, doesn't matter. You can put it in place and play around with it, and then you might obtain some stuff that you wouldn't have think of at first anyway. So let's open up our second repeater, and let's increase the amount of repetitions, and I've set the value that was set to 100 by default to 0, and let's start by increasing 1. So this, if we want to make a row of that nice structure, it's something that we can do here. And I'm not gonna basically explain what a repeater does. I think you know pretty much what you can do with that kind of thing. Like if I was to pull this up like that, and at the same time decrease the segment size each step. So let's see, 80, 80, and 80. So that'll make it that'll change how our repetitions look, and we can bring them on the side like that, or I don't know that this one matters any more, but this one does. So that's something that I don't know. That's cool. So exploring those options here is simply fun, and creatively it's kind of an exercise, like when you train your muscles, doing that kind of stuff with Trapcode TAO is training our ability to create more stuff, and then when we actually know what we're doing, we have more possibilities available to us because we've messed around before. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to make any sense what we create. It's just what you find. If you think that it's cool, well, it's cool, and make it and render it, and then perhaps other people will think it's cool. Or maybe the only thing that has to matter is, are you having fun? Is it something that you like doing? Yes, so do it. Don't think that you need to be like some kind of a professional. Or so we've got our nice pattern here. Let's now play around with the camera if we want to make this thing look a little bit more. If we want to get more a sense of perspective, we can make it 24mm, and then it will make it smaller. But then we'll zoom back, and then we can get more. More of a sense of scale in there, and we can also rotate it on the Z there. And now that we've done that, depending on what you want to do, if you want to make it fade in the background, let's get in the visibility, and let's pick up the color from our background simply, and let's bring this back. Up to the point where it's fading. So that looks pretty nice. And let's get back to our ambient occlusion, which is pretty intense right now. So you can play around, and let's trick a little bit of fake reflections in there. So we're gonna use the built-in environment this time. Get in the material and lighting, and let's get in the image-based lighting. And let's use this graffiti ruin, or let's use this church interior, and let's have it just a tad of that in there. And the diffuse trend, let's now brighten this up, and let's increase the Fresnel, so that'll make it, if you want to have to simulate just a little bit of reflection going on in your material. So we'll get this nice reflective surface feel there. And let's add on top of all that Control Alt Y. I'm gonna make an adjustment layer, and let's go ahead and make a curve. Let's brighten up all that. Pretty cool. So let's call this, I call this CC for color correction. And let's bring up the levels. So right there we can see that our little graphic here, this side here is empty. Sometimes what I do, and automatically get more flashy results, is just bring this towards the side there, and then readjust the middle one. So let's get rid of our curve while we do that, and let's bring this one on top. So that's the first one in the stack, and let's bring the red like so. Let's get to our green, and the green starts there, and let's get to the blue. So here is the blue. So we can look at how, when I'm doing that, I'm not really touching at the yellow, but I'm really just affecting the blue colors here. So let's get back in the general RGB now, and we can get around over here if we don't want to lose any of this part of the red there. So depending on how you want to equalize your colors there, and then add on top of that some curve, but we're going to reset it now and redo that. So it's pretty in your face now, it's pretty vivid. Let's add a tint, and we're going to desaturate it a little bit maybe, and then we can add some color balance. And what's bothering us in here, is it that we need more of the main red and less of the blue in the high, or we actually need more of that and less of the blue in the shadows, depending on what you're after. And you can also get back here, and we also have our colors here that we can directly, if we want to pull in more orange in there, we can automatically do that, and it won't necessarily refresh automatically, but let's force it by hitting Control-Alt//, and this should have changed. Let's make it more drastic, so let's make it this kind of an orange. It'll change it automatically. So there we have it. Alright, pretty cool. So now that we have that, perhaps we want to repeat it everywhere. So let's open up the repeat path options there, and oh, we've used all of our repeaters. I would like to have a third level to repeat all that, but well, I guess that it won't be possible in this case. Well, not that we can't. If we just wanted to repeat once or twice, what we can easily do now that we have this patch of layers that goes together, we can color code that lavender. Maybe not, it's not standing out as much as our vivid colors here. So let's color that orange, and we're going to duplicate all that by hitting Command D, and let's bring it on top here, so they're all stacking up, and let's make them another color so we can differentiate them. And since they're all going to be connected to our second null here, we can hit P, and we can bring this towards us, and it's gonna repeat, well, our pattern. So let's bring it up, and then it'll kind of offset our structure. And if we want to get a third one, let's once again copy it from the center. I'm gonna save to make sure that we don't crash, because sometimes that happens when you duplicate lights, but in this case it doesn't seem like it affects it. So let's keep it orange, as long as it's different from the purple here. And if we try to bring it back, this one will be right in the in our fog, so we'll see it in the distance fading off there. Looks pretty nice. So let's move it on the side, on X as well. Oops, I mean on the Z there. Let's get it closer towards the side there, and let's rotate that. We can of course bring the rotation values for this, and I think that if we rotate it, I'm not sure that its center point is going to be yeah, so perhaps we want to get different results here, so let's hit 90 degrees, making it face another direction. So that's something that is actually possible to do. Let's move our camera a bit so we can get a nice angle there, and let's save. You can look at it from the bottom, from the top. Anyway, so remember to experiment and sometimes just put down your basic idea and experiment on it and mess around with it. It doesn't have to make any sense, as long as you like it, as long as it makes sense for you, and keep on doing it. But of course, before we go, let's put some quick animation to that. So nothing real fancy. Let's just add some wigglings on the distance here. So one quick way I would do that is let's go in the offset, and let's first keyframe our offset and make sure that it's looping. So we're gonna check that option here, and let's click on the stopwatch here at frame 0, and let's get to frame 45. Let's not make it longer than that in terms of duration, and bring it up to 100. Alright, so that shouldn't change anything. I'm gonna hit Shift 3 here to make a marker. I'm gonna hit Home, getting back at frame 0, and hit Shift 1 so I can get between both by the simple action of my finger here on my keyboard. And let's get back one frame by hitting page up. So we're on frame 44, and I'm gonna hit N to close down the work area. So right between here and there we should have some motion, and that should loop. So what kind of motion do we want to get? Let's get in the offset animation sequence. Let's activate this, and very simply we could move the world position X. What would that do if we want to test it here, or perhaps not? Let's change the OAS position X, because we don't want to change the world, we just want to change some aspects and then have our changes. So let's do that. That's something the OAS position Z we can either keyframe something real simple, but once again let's call our Dan Ebert wiggle here, and let's copy and paste this here on the OAS position Z. So I'm gonna alt click on the stopwatch here and Control V to paste, and then I'm gonna hit caps lock because it's probably gonna become a little bit tedious now. So let's make the loop time 10, because that's the default value for the OAS duration, and we just want an amplitude of 12 and the frequency real small of 0.3, and let's try that. So I'm gonna hit caps lock there and see we have some motion going, and we know that it's gonna loop because we have this code here that is wiggling, but that makes sure that it loops. So we shouldn't have any problems in between, because we've keyframed the offset between frame 0 and 45. So no matter if what we have in the OAS is 10 seconds, it's brought down to this. What matters is that it goes from 0 to 100. So we'll have a loop in between those points. It's as easy as that. So you can apply this to any other value there, and that'll make it pulse like this. And of course, if you want this motion to be slower, you can reduce the value, you can decrease the value here, and if you don't want it everything to be affected as much, make it a little smaller on the amplitude. So let's see what we get out of that. So some of the pieces are getting on top of each other, so perhaps it's not the best options in terms of flickering. Let's have it extremely increased to see what's happening at 250. Ooh, and this, let's make it 0.072, and this is quite big, so 150, and let's try that. So we have some kind of a pulsating motion, which is looping, and so we don't have to worry about keyframing anything and making sure that we have something that loops. And it loops. Wonderful. These colors are extreme. And yet another thing that we might want to try here. Let me set that to quarter res, and let's get in. I just want to see something first. Let's get in the amount of segments, and let's put down 2 segments, or 3 segments, or 4 segments. What does this affect? Oh, we have a little bit of extrusion going on, so let's keep it like this. But if we want these structures to build up, I haven't tried this before, so let's try it and see. We can get in the repeat paths once again, and the values that we change here, we can keyframe it, the amount of repetition. So let's try it on the first one. So let's open this back up, and let's now select our TAO layer and hit U. So there is our keyframe that we've just selected, that we've just created, and let's get right at the middle. Maybe we can add a little bit more frames than that. And what's cool is that now that we've built our system, we can double it. It'll work simply if we just drag this to 90, and then our last frame becomes the frame 89. We're gonna force refresh it just to make sure we don't have any problems here. And let's try to go back to frame 45 now, which is right in the middle, and let's bring our keyframe here. So right here it's at 35, and let's bring it down here to the amount of 3. So we have our small little boxes here, and what I can notice here is that we get some kind of issues on the edges, and that's when we have, I've noticed in my case, when I have it to off, this doesn't occur on the edges, but we get perhaps a little bit more noise in the ambient occlusion, but that's our job to put the right settings here manually to make sure that it doesn't look that bad. So let's get this keyframe here. Let's make sure we have the same on frame 90. So I'm just gonna hit Control C to copy it, and I'm gonna paste it right there if it will allow me. So copy and paste. So now we have we'll have some kind of a build-up. Let's look at that. So it's popping in and then back, and we can ease that motion just by simply selecting all those and hitting F9, which I'm not gonna do because it stops the recording, but let me get in the keyframe assistant and easy ease. So let's try to refresh that. And we can also apply that code here to one more TAO property in the OAS. So let's try with the size. So let's alt click on the OAS size here. That's gonna open up this text box here, and let's see what we have with an amplitude of 20. So that's gonna also influence the size here. Whoops. Let me just shut off this argument here by clicking on this here, and if this was to be reduced, it'll reduce the size of our thing. So let's see what it does if it's animated. So that's another option. Alright, so that was all for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching as always.